Beneath the observation deck, the air hung heavy with the acrid, lingering scent of ozone and burnt chitin. The smell settled over the tiered observer benches like a physical weight, a testament to the brutal efficiency of the warm-up rounds. This was the 4001 12th Annual Interspecies Combat Trials at the Viathis Military Academy. Down on the expansive, sand-covered combat floor, 340 cadets from 16 different species prepared to bleed for institutional glory. High above the chaotic energy of the arena, Senior Instructor Zelixar monitored the flow of combat. An omniscient array of sensors and data streams fed directly into her primary console. Her compound eyes flicked across the cascading information, categorizing heart rates, adrenaline spikes, and microscopic muscle twitches across the stadium. Her delicate, moth-like wings shimmered with quiet, academic pride. The automated system worked perfectly. The martial hierarchy of the galaxy was manifesting exactly as historical data predicted, except for the human. Rain's a solitary exchange program recruit, sat near the very edge of the registration zone. She was listed purely as an observer. Humans simply did not possess the augmented combat reflexes required to survive the arena floor. They lacked natural armor, venom glands, or the redundant internal organs necessary to withstand a kinetic strike from a heavy welder. Rain sat perfectly still, her hands resting loosely on her knees, watching the violence unfold below with an expression of mild detached interest. Would you step into the sand if it wasn't your fight? Because she didn't hesitate. A sharp, sickening crack echoed through the stadium acoustics. Down on the primary mat, a heavy-plated Corran cadet drove a jagged, ossified elbow into the delicate thorax of a Sellan student. The moth-like alien crumpled immediately. Its fragile wings folded inward protectively, their natural bioluminescence dimming instantly as delicate pain receptors overloaded. The match did not stop. Academy regulations clearly permitted acceptable casualties to accurately simulate actual battlefield conditions. The Karen raised its armored limb, preparing to deliver a crippling, potentially lethal secondary strike to the paralyzed student. Up on the bench, Rain stood. She did not yell. She did not signal the medical officials or attempt to override the referee's hovering drone. She simply unzipped her civilian jacket. As she slipped the heavy fabric off her shoulders, the harsh stadium lighting caught a small, bright square of paper pinned to the inside lining. It was a child's drawing, a crude, vibrant yellow sun rendered in wax crayon, completely incongruous with the industrial violence of the military academy. She folded the jacket with precise, almost bored movements, smoothing the collar flat before setting it down on the polished metal of the registration console. Then, she typed her name into the open, active combatant bracket. Silence. The registration system chimed, a soft, pleasant, melodic tone that felt entirely out of place as the human stepped over the low barrier and descended onto the sand. The omniscient sensors, tracking the arena, immediately locked onto the anomaly. A human entering the active combat zone was a direct violation of standard protocol. Yet the automated system, recognizing a valid Academy identification code, had accepted the override. Round 1 began before the stunned officials could halt the proceedings. A Jorath cadet, six-limbed and heavily hoofed, registered the new target and charged. The Jorath weighed over 800 pounds and accelerated with terrifying, ground-shaking momentum. Rains did not brace for the impact. She did not raise her arms in a defensive posture. She merely pivoted. It was a microscopic, mathematically perfect shift in weight, a casual sidestep executed at the exact millisecond of contact. The charging alien met nothing but empty air, its own immense kinetic energy carrying it forward to crash violently into the energy containment barrier. The Jorath collapsed in a heap, rendered immediately unconscious by the self-inflicted trauma. Match time, 4.3 seconds. High above, Zelixar gripped the edge of her podium. Her secondary heartbeat faster, pushing oxygen-rich blood to her extremities in a deep biological response to the impossible. Unaugmented combat reflexes were not supposed to operate at that velocity. Round 2 initiated immediately. The arena's automated pairing algorithm, lacking any historical data for human combatants, simply pushed the next available challenger forward. Her opponent was a Tyroth cadet, a towering being composed of living, articulated metal. The Tyroth lunged, sweeping a dense metallic appendage toward the human's ribcage, with enough force to shatter stone. Rain stepped smoothly inside the wide arc of the strike. Her fingers, small and pale, found the microscopic gap where the Tyroth's magnetic field articulated its massive shoulder joint. She twisted sharply. The living metal seized, suffering a cascading failure of its internal magnetic lock, and the massive cadet dropped like a decommissioned statue. 11 seconds. Zelixar frantically pulled up the human's biological telemetry, expecting to see a massive, unsustainable spike in adrenaline, a terrifying surge of cortisol to explain the impossible reaction times. Instead, the data stream flowed cool, stable blue. Between the violent bursts of the rounds, Rains's heart rate was actively decreasing. The physiological readout plummeted past baseline, dropping so low it triggered the arena's automated safety warnings. The medical systems flagged a critical cardiac event, a massive drop in rhythm that could only mean she was just calm, not panicked, not running on raw survival instinct. When surrounded by superior predators, the human was simply relaxed. The realization washed over the observation deck, manifesting not in sudden noise but in a profound, unsettling stillness among the watching species. The ambient roar of the arena died away, leaving only the soft hum of the environmental scrubbers and the steady, even breathing of the solitary human standing in the center of the sand. The sand of the arena floor had barely settled before the automated gates groaned open for the final championship bracket. The algorithm, completely destabilized by the anomaly of Rains's metrics, had bypassed the remaining tiers entirely and summoned the reigning victor. The Drefkari champion, identifier number 31, crawled into the harsh light. It was a terrifying fusion of biological armor and lethal geometry. Scorpion-like in its proportions, the creature boasted a segmented carapace that gleamed like polished obsidian and a massive articulated tail tipped with a hollow stinger dripping highly corrosive neurotoxin. This was a 3-time winner of the trials, a being bred exclusively for the systematic dismantling of opposing organic matter. The stadium spectators, recovering from their initial shock, began to emit a low, thrumming vibration of anticipated bloodlust. This was what they had paid to see. The total annihilation of a fragile outlier. Rains did not flinch. She simply watched the massive creature circle her posture remaining infuriatingly relaxed. Up in the observation deck, Zelixar monitored the telemetry, her compound eyes fixed on the human skeletal density readings. The data was almost incomprehensible. A cubic inch of human bone could bear over 19,000 pounds of pressure, rendering their internal structure fundamentally stronger than industrial steel per unit of weight. They looked soft on the outside, wrapped in vulnerable, unarmored skin, but their core was forged from evolutionary iron. The Drefkari struck. It was not a calculated probe. It was a killing blow, a blur of motion as the segmented tail whipped forward faster than most optical sensors could track, aimed directly at the center of the human's chest. Rains moved. She did not dodge. She did not attempt to deflect the blow away from her vital organs. She simply raised her left hand and caught the incoming stinger. Not blocked, catches, barehanded. The impact sounded like a kinetic sledgehammer striking an anvil. The sheer physical force should have shattered her wrist, snapped her radius, and driven the venomous spike straight through her torso. Instead, the dense, unyielding architecture of her skeletal structure absorbed the kinetic energy perfectly. Her boots slid back exactly 1 inch in the sand. Then she stopped moving. The stadium froze. Zelixar's data feeds flared with warning lights as the Drefkari's primary venom glands contracted involuntarily, pumping a massive dose of corrosive fluid directly over the human's exposed fingers. Venom designed to liquefy Kryth crystal armor upon contact, and the human simply watched it drip. The thick, glowing liquid coated Rains's palm and ran down her wrist. Her skin reddened slightly, irritated by the chemical burn, but it did not dissolve. It did not melt. The devastating biological weapon of a 3-time galactic champion was reduced to a mild topical irritant against the dense, resilient dermis of a species from a high-gravity death world. The venom did nothing. Rains tilted her head, looking at the massive, trembling creature tethered to her grip. Her voice carried easily over the stunned silence of the arena, picked up by the omniscient audio sensors and broadcast to every spectator. Your weapons are adorable. Do they do anything? The physiological reaction of the Drefkari was instantaneous and unprecedented in the 4,000-year history of the trials. Realizing that its ultimate offensive capability had been utterly negated by a soft-skinned observer, the creature's central nervous system experienced a cascading failure of will. Its massive tail curled underneath its armored body. Its remaining venom glands emptied themselves onto the sand in a reflexive, involuntary purge. It flattened its thorax against the ground, adopting a universal posture of total submission. Match time, 27 seconds. The pivot from the roaring bloodlust of a championship crowd to absolute, suffocating silence was immediate. No one cheered. No one moved. Down on the floor, the medical drones hovered in confused circles, unsure of how to process a victory achieved through mere resilience. Up on the observation deck, Zelixar slowly lowered her hands from the console, her shimmering wings folded tightly against her back, completely devoid of their former pride. She wasn't competing. A junior instructor whispered from the next terminal over, his voice trembling as he stared at the telemetry. She was showing us what gentle looked like on her world. The Academy Board convened in an emergency session before the sand had even been swept clean, voting 14-1 to permanently close the interspecies combat trials to human participants, though every instructor present knew that writing a new regulation would never erase what they had just witnessed. Zelixar formally filed the motion herself. The official record stated that humans were incompatible with the safety protocols of the Academy. It was a comforting lie. The galaxy added a new law that year. Just one. No humans. It wasn't enough. Rains collected a jacket from the registration console with the same precise, almost bored manner she had left it. As she lifted the fabric, the harsh stadium lighting caught the crude yellow crayon of the child's drawing pinned inside. It no longer looked like an anomaly of war, but a terrible promise. The arena remained perfectly still as she walked away, leaving the spectators utterly uncertain of what else slept beneath human skin.